Machine learning, AI, and generative AI combined together, which is based on large amount of data, fueled by algorithms, has a tremendous ability to disrupt the entire space of hiring and recruitment and selection process.
We're diving into a topic which is rapidly evolving, is very powerful, is accessible to almost everyone, and has been adopted with lightning speed, and perhaps it holds the capacity to fundamentally change the way various functions within an organization operate. I'm alluding to the disruptive generative AI technology that everyone is talking about, with optimism and fear alike. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of In Conversation With. I'm your host, Gyanendra Pati. I lead marketing and communications at Acuity Knowledge Partners. In the past episodes, we have covered a variety of topics, including leadership, diversity, equity, and inclusion, training and knowledge management. And these are the topics which are key to sustained organizational success and creating future ready workplaces. Today, we're diving into a topic which is rapidly evolving, is very powerful, is accessible to almost everyone, and has been adopted with lightning speed, and perhaps it holds the capacity to fundamentally change the way various functions within an organization operate. I'm alluding to the disruptive generative AI technology that everyone is talking about, with optimism and fear alike. However, for today's discussion, we'll only focus on generative AI and its impact on HR, and how can HR leaders look to integrate generative AI to various HR processes. I'm super excited to welcome our guest speaker today. Please welcome Avadhesh Dixit, CHRO at Acuity Knowledge Partners, a passionate champion of technology in HR. Avadhesh, welcome to this podcast.
Thank you, Gyan. I'm extremely glad to be here. Equally excited to discuss today's topic, which, as you said, is very interesting. So, looking forward to our conversation. Thank you so much.
Personally, Avadhesh, for me, I'm equally excited as well. I'm very curious as well. Curious how this transformation is happening and what's the future of HR is in a rapidly evolving technology landscape, and what are your thoughts on how HR would evolve with generative AI. Let's begin with a very brief introduction to your experience in the HR industry all this while, and then we'll begin the conversation.
I have been practicing HR for close to 25 years now. I did a master's in HR from Delhi School of Economics. And then I have held various leadership roles in Tata Group, in G Capital, Moody's Corporation, and now acting as the CHRO for Acuity Knowledge Partners.
Brilliant. Thanks a lot for that. For the benefit of our listeners, let's begin by asking you a very obvious question, which is there in everybody's mind. What exactly is generative AI and how has it transformed HR in the current times?
See, before Gyan, I answer what is generative AI all about, let me reiterate the fact that any kind of technology that is evolving over a period of time has ability to disrupt any function, for that matter, whether it is finance or compliance or core financial services, the way they get offered, including HR. I guess it is extremely important that every practitioner of HR, whether you are at the bottom of the organization, you started your career in HR, or you are sitting at the top of the pyramid leading HR organizations or acting as a HR leader, it is extremely, extremely crucial that HR people realize the disruptive as well as supportive role of technology in their functions. So it's not only about generative AI, but the larger technology adoption and being very comfortable with it and using it as a mechanism to accelerate the growth in the organizations. Now, having said that technology is extremely important, let's talk about artificial intelligence, and in particular, let's talk about generative AI. Generative AI is all about collecting a large amount of data, and this data could be in the form of videos, it could be in the form of audios, it could be in the form of text, it could be in the form of scripts, you name it, the multiple ways, the way you collect data. and you collect a large amount of data, and that data then is put to some kind of an algorithm, in terms of reading the patterns in the data. And once a large amount of data you are able to develop, decipher some kind of a insight into data, then it starts giving you some kind of predictive ability. What is so unique about generative AI is that it learns from the data that it consumes. The large amount of data that you keep on feeding to the system, and you build algorithm, and in terms of how the data is going to learn from each other, that is what makes generative AI even much more powerful than simple analytics or predictive analytics as the world was evolving. So in nutshell, a lot of people know about large language models. It is nothing but consuming a large amount of data, putting algorithms which you think are going to allow the data to be learning in a very, very objective manner. And then based on those large amount of data, you generate content which solves the problems or answers the problems that the user may have. So in a very simple terms, that's what generative AI is all about, Gyan.
Perfect. And thanks so much for explaining this with such simplicity. AI enables HR teams to extract insights from data and it gives recommendation in real time. So my next question is what are those functions within HR where generative AI has been deployed successfully in the recent times?
As I said, generative AI is a very different class, which is very, I would say, nascent, and it is picking up momentum in a very big way because it has got very exponential way to grow because the data learns from itself. Imagine if there is something which is learning from itself and producing results. Obviously, you have to keep on feeding data. The beauty of the entire generative AI is that more and more, qualitative data and the quantum of data you feed into the model, more smarter it becomes because it has its own intelligence. As I said, it learns from learns from itself. But before I get into the impact of generative AI into HR function and various HR sub functions, let me tell you one thing. Artificial intelligence itself has a very big role in HR and various functions. Let me give you some examples. Pick up a function like recruitment, or hiring. Imagine that a company is hiring thousands of people, and they are interacting with candidates in the market. And obviously, for every candidate that you hire and you make them your employee, your touch point is going to be at least 8 to 10 times, depending on what kind of hiring you are doing. So imagine if there are large amount of people who you are touching base, and there's only a minuscule population that you end up hiring. What if you are able to gather the data about the demographic profile, the kind of skill set they have, the kind of companies they have worked for, number of breaks that they have taken in their career, maybe some amount of the family background without intruding into privacy of the personal privacy of candidates. But if you could gather multiple data points of all the candidates with whom you have a touch point, and you can turn that into an algorithm which tells you finally what kind of people you end up selecting. So from the touch point, collecting a large amount of data, giving some kind of a algorithm to it, and that algorithm is going to be obviously that these are the kind of people that I'm looking for. These are the kind of people who are fit to me. This kind of skill set, this kind of demographics, this kind of personality profiling. And if you are able to do that with a large amount of data, and you can get to a stage where you have ability to predict the kind of candidates who are going to get selected, imagine the amount of time saving and productivity gain you have, because the machine itself or the predictive power of artificial intelligence based on large amount of data is already telling you what is the likelihood of the kind of candidates you are going to end up selecting.
Absolutely. That's very useful and very interesting as well. What about employee onboarding and training? Do you see AI playing a part here?
Of course, so now when I say generative AI, let's conclude the previous question by saying that the way you use machine learning to build predictive models, and the way you use traditional artificial intelligence, business intelligence tools, BI technology, the next step is, do you have a large language model which has consumed a lot of your internal data, Imagine if you can combine your internal data that you have collected over a period of 20 years on candidates, and you can also have some kind of an insight, access into large amount of data through external sources, and you can build a generative AI model which has predictive ability in terms of answering who are the right candidates for your organization. It is going to be highly disruptive when it comes to making selection decisions, making rejection decisions, also maybe having some kind of a predictive ability as to what kind of people are going to be successful in your organization. So this entire machine learning, AI and generative AI combined together, which is based on large amount of data fueled by algorithms, has a tremendous ability to disrupt the entire space of hiring and recruitment and selection process. As far as onboarding is concerned, which is the next step after hiring, imagine if there is a generative AI model which can train all the candidates or employees who have joined you on basic induction. For example, people can go to the model that you have developed and say, okay, what is the compliance policy of Acuity Knowledge Partners? That's a very basic question to ask a generative AI. It gives you a compliance policy. Then you can ask a question, what happens if I do not follow a compliance policy? Again, it has algorithm built. It tells you based on the data that you have fed and based on the actions that you have taken in the past, it'll tell you what kind of potential implications are there in case you do not follow a compliance policy. The onboarding process can be led by generative AI model where the amount of manual intervention by the HR team and the training team can be minimized. As far as the content is concerned, and you are aware, there are a lot of large language models where the content creation itself is done by the generative AI model. Some basic content generation for onboarding, some basic content generation for compliance training, some basic content generation for people getting trained on prevention of sexual harassment at workplaces. In future, that is going to be done by generative AI.
Perfect. It is clearly understood that it is helping the new employees to become efficient and productive with less time, and the HR teams to become more efficient and productive as well. Great. So my next question, and it's in two folds of this. The first one, how are we leveraging the power of AI at Equity? And second, do you see the adoption of AI growing in Equity in the coming years?
As far as Equity is concerned, we have onboarded one of the cutting edge technology platforms, which is an end to end technology platform. It is already enabled with a lot of automation tools. It is also enabled with AI technology where we can feed a lot of data into it and we can get very smart HR analytics. We've already started using it. So our current HR technology that we are using in HR has inbuilt automation. Not only it is automating the manual tasks, but it is also has ability to consume a large amount of data, and with some kind of a basic algorithm setup, you can get insight into HR analytics. So Acuity Knowledge Partners has adopted one of the business intelligence tools, and we have built some algorithm which is giving us some kind of a predictive insight into who are the people who are going to perform, who are the people who may be attrition risk, who are the people who have the potential to get promoted. It is a little early in terms of really refining those results, and I'll tell you why it is early. All machine learning, artificial intelligence, generative AI is all about data, data, data. The level one queries, which are more in the domain of what, rather than getting into interpreting a policy and giving an answer, I think that's where we are going to start our journey with respect to generative AI. We are already in the process of launching our own LLM model, as you are aware. And at some point in time, I think generative AI is going to get into onboarding, into recruitment, and answering level one queries, which are not a complex mix of human and technology.
Absolutely. So AI is not just only streamlining the processes, it is also improving employee experience. And then it is very evident from how you answered this question with all those right justifications, and it's great to hear that. And I do also understand that AI plays a significant role in performance management as well. Can you throw a little bit light on that?
One can build a predictive model based on large amount of past data, quality data, without much noise, which has been collected over a long period of time, you can build models which are going to give you direction as to what's going to happen in the future. But then generative AI has gone leaps and bounds ahead of some of the predictive modeling, which is based on correlation and regression analysis. As far as performance management is concerned, see, our ability to predict who are the people who are going to be our top performers is going to be a real changer, game changer. See, even now, we have enough data to classify our poor performers, top performers, medium performers, and all that. That's one level of insight because that gives you action to act. But the second level of insight is going to be based on multiple data points, which teams, which managers, what kind of situations, hybrid versus people working from home, somebody coming from tier one campus, tier two campus, somebody coming from a tier one town, tier two town. You add multiple dimensions to an employee and see if there is any kind of a predictive ability in terms of who are the people who are going to perform better. And I think then once you start getting that data that these are the guys who are going to be potentially are your rising stars, as I call it, then there would be specific intervention in terms of their succession management. You can customize your incentive programs for them. There could be a different level of engagement because these guys are your rising stars. And do you really want to have a different kind of a performance management mechanism for your rising stars? So I think it's going to be a combination of machine and human interaction, which is going to make performance management and career conversations much more powerful, by the way, Gyan.
That's going to some real depth of this. I believe that the HR teams as well as the business functions are taking great value from the inputs that you have shared. So while as exciting this conversation is shaping up, we have to take a pause and we shall continue this conversation in the follow-up episodes. To our listeners, don't forget to tune in to the final episode to learn more about generative AI and its ethical considerations and what Avdesh says about some of the not so positive narrative of generative AI around replacement of jobs. So stay tuned and we'll continue the conversation.
Thank you, Gyan, and I appreciate your indulgence. And it was very exciting conversation. And I look forward to our next episode very soon. Thank you so much.